Equality is a key theme in our ESRC-funded project, which examines the labour market implications of changes in the public sector. Here I'm going to focus on our work on gender equality and the gender pay gap in particular. This is joint work with Vicky Waz and Jerry Makepeace, who are both from Cardiff Business School. We use data from the Labour Force Survey. This collects information on individuals' earnings, hours and personal characteristics to track the average hourly earnings of men and women and the difference between them, the gender pay gap. We do this over a period of 16 years from 1998 to 2013, and we do it separately for workers in the public and private sector. This allows us to explore the gender pay gap over periods of public sector growth and austerity. Figure 1 plots the gender pay gap over time. The solid black line shows the gender pay gap for the overall economy, the blue dashed line below it is for the public sector, and the green dotted line above it for the private sector. The gender pay gap is consistently greater in the private sector. For example, in 2013 it is 27 log points in the private sector compared to 19 log points in the public sector. The figure also shows a narrowing of the UK gender pay gap from 31 log points in 1998 to about 21 log points in 2010. This narrowing is evident in both sectors, but importantly, the trend appears to stall in 2010. Our project investigates the determinants of the gender pay gap, in particular separating the role of gender difference in characteristics from differential treatment at the workplace, and examines how these factors vary over time and across sectors. We find that the downward trend in the gender pay gap is primarily driven by improvements in female characteristics, particularly education relative to men, and it is a halt in this improvement that drives the stalling trend noted above. We find limited evidence of changes in unequal treatment over time, although unequal treatment accounts for a greater gender pay gap in the private than the public sector. The overall gender pay gap is determined both by the within-sector gaps but also by the distribution of men and women across sectors. We find that women are concentrated in the public sector, with over a third of female employees working in the public sector compared to about 20% for men. While there's evidence that there's been a decline in public sector employment from 2010, in line with government austerity, this occurs among both genders, and we find that neither the level nor the trend has much effect on the UK gender pay gap. Overall, our research confirms a smaller gender pay gap in the public than the private sector and highlights a stalling in the long-term narrowing trend. However, in contrast to the arguments in the literature, which have anticipated rising inequality from changes in employer treatment, we find that the flattening of the gender pay gap reflects a halt in the improvement of characteristics of women relative to men in both sectors.